blowing up the billionaires con that's shattering America. I mean, we are trying to put this country back together after being ripped off by Donald Trump, who, by the way, front page of the New York Times today, he's charging the Secret Service $400 a night for rooms at Mar-a-Lago because they're required to protect the president. So he's made like 40 grand on the Secret Service since he left office. He just, he continues to rip us off. So anyhow, as we're struggling to recover from Trump's rip-offs, his, damaging our government, and his killing 500,000 of us unnecessarily. You know the death toll in Taiwan for the entire pandemic as of this moment? 12. 12 people. Why? Because they all wore masks. And because they shut down the economy initially and gave all the businesses enough money to keep paying their employees at about 80% of their regular wages so that, everything held together. Anyhow, we're recovering from Trump. We're getting a clearer picture of the sedition. I used the word treason yesterday, and a fellow called and said, you got to be careful about using that word treason. And I said, well, okay, I'll call them traitors. It was among Republicans in Congress around January 6th. And as we're trying to pass legislation, right now there's, Mitch McConnell has essentially announced that he's going to filibuster this January 6th commission that the Democrats and Republicans are trying to put together. As you know, I'm not a fan of commissions. I'm not a fan of this commission, frankly. I think that there should be congressional investigations like the 10 different Benghazi investigations. I think there should be at least 2, one in the House and one in the Senate. And I think that a special prosecutor should be appointed. But, if the commission gets appointed, fine. No problem. I'm okay with that. But Mitch McConnell says he's going to filibuster it. And, we'll see. Oh, did I miss my Friday open? Happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It's Anything Goes Friday, by the way. We have no guests today. It's just you and me all day. So 202-808-9925. Whatever you want to talk about, we can get into. Back to my rant. We've got dark money. We got foreign oligarchs. We got right-wing media groups, some of them funded by foreign oligarchs, who are hard at work trying to tear this nation apart, and they're having considerable success. Back in 1958, the Pew organization started doing annual, actually I'm not sure if they're annual or every 2 or 3 years, because the last one I've seen is from 2 years ago. So maybe it's a couple of years. But anyhow, they started doing these polls of the American people saying, do you trust the government? Do you trust your government? And throughout the 50s and throughout the 60s, it was 75% of Americans who said, yes, I trust my government to do what's right. And then in 1971 comes the Powell memo, where Lewis Powell says to a group of billionaires, he was this tobacco lawyer, and in fact, Nixon put him on the Supreme Court a year after he wrote his memo. He wrote the memo in 71, and Nixon put him on the court in 72. Lewis Powell writes that, basically, hey, us billionaires and us toadies for billionaires have to take over the political process, and the way to do that is to convince Americans that government is evil. And therefore, you can justify cutting taxes because, hey, government shouldn't have that money. They're evil. And therefore, you can justify deregulation and making for example, fossil fuel billionaires richer by polluting the air because, after all, government is evil. You don't want them regulating the quality of the air, do you? We can justify making the coal barons richer as they dump their coal tailings into the rivers and poison, downstream communities with arsenic and radioactive elements and lead and mercury and other things that come from coal tailing because, hey, government is evil and they shouldn't be regulating the quality of our water. I could go on and on. You know the rants, but anyhow, this is what Lewis Powell laid out. And a bunch of billionaires stepped up and said, okay, cool, we'll do it. And they created the Heritage Foundation, and they created the Cato Institute, and they created the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and they created all these organizations, the Federalist Society, all of these organizations, so that, amplifying this message that Ronald Reagan officially announced. I mean, this is the official launch of the Powell memo, was January 20th, 1981, when Ronald Reagan was sworn in and gave his first inaugural address. And what did he say? He said, government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem. You get this? And so here we are now 40 years later, and Pew did a study, and this was in 2019. And they said, do you trust the government? Now, keep in mind, it was 75% of Americans back in the 60s and 70s who said, yeah, we trust the government, and the 50s. Now it's 17%. They have had considerable success. And now it's like, the tyranny of wearing masks. I mean, this is not an accident. It's the result of a 5-decade-long campaign, the last 4 decades being official and out in the open, put on by these, billionaire groups and the corporations that made them rich. And it's destroying this. It's destroying our country. It is setting us up. And now to amplify this, down in Arizona, and now Republicans want to take this nationwide. They want to do it in Georgia and Texas next. In Arizona, you've got a bunch of people coming in saying, you can't even trust the vote. You can't trust the vote. And therefore, you can't trust democracy. And therefore, you should just, go along with whatever the Republicans who control the state legislature say. So if the Republicans say, Maricopa County's got a lot of black and brown people, I think we'll only count half the ballots this year. Because, there's some precincts that are kind of sketchy. They're awful dark, I mean, that's what it boils down to. They're auditing the only really diverse county in the state. No mistake there. You'll recall it was Trump who was saying, oh, yeah, all the fraud is happening in Milwaukee, the blackest city in Wisconsin. In Detroit, the blackest city in Michigan. Well, maybe Flint, I'm sure he'd have a burr under his tail about Flint, too, if it had enough people in it. And Pittsburgh, another, majority black city. This is so obvious. Don't trust democracy when democracy allows black and brown people to vote. I mean, that's what it's come to. And we've got this entire effort now to stop any kind of forward motion in this country, to stop Joe Biden, and not to hold any Republicans accountable for sedition.